Welcome back. Second lecture and our first look at Iraq. Last time, the Iran-Iraq War, launched by our enemy's enemy, Saddam Hussein. The lecture today, the response to our former allies, or at least our former friends' invasion of his neighbor, Kuwait. This is, of course, Saddam Hussein's August 1990 invasion of Kuwait, which resulted in 1991's Desert Storm, a war some of you may be actually old enough to remember. I certainly remember this Gulf War. I was 14 years old, in middle school, heading into high school next year, very exciting stuff. And this was the biggest thing that had ever happened. Summer of 1991, I was in Washington with my parents at the victory parade for this war. It's a war that made America feel good again about its military. Because up till this war, the United States was experiencing a hangover from Vietnam. This was a good cure for that hangover. Before we get to the war, let's look at the reasons why it happens in the first place. In the main, there are three reasons. First, financial reason. Iraq is heavily in debt to its neighbor and ally Kuwait. $15 billion of war debt to Kuwait alone. Moreover, as we saw in the documentary, Iraq's own oil capacity had been utterly destroyed in the war with Iran. However, Kuwait's facilities and fields, beautifully intact, just sitting there, ripe for the taking. Finally, last piece of the puzzle. 25th of July, 1990, 1 week before Iraqi tanks would roll into Kuwait, the American ambassador to Iraq, April Glaspie, said these exact words. Diplomats choose their words very, very carefully. Words mistranslated, misunderstood. They take very great care with their words. She tells Tariq Aziz, her counterpart, the foreign ministry, I have a direct instruction from the president, at this point George H.W. Bush. I have a direct instruction from the president to seek better relations with Iraq. We have no opinion. We have no opinion on Arab-Arab conflicts like your border disagreement with Kuwait. Thus, 1 week later, Saddam Hussein feels confident that his harebrained scheme to steal Kuwait and annex it might actually work. After all, better relations, no opinion on Arab conflicts. Let's go back in time just a little bit first. To 1 year earlier, when the new president's new Secretary of State, James Baker, the new president being George H.W. Bush, his new Secretary of State meets with Tariq Aziz, the man with whom Donald Rumsfeld had met in 1983. In October of 1989, these two men met. We have documentation for it via a cable from the State Department, from James Baker to the embassy here in Iraq, apprising them of what was discussed in this meeting. Yet another secure cable. On the table was financial assistance for Iraq. Congress had recently slashed $600 million off of a farm aid bill for Iraq from $1 billion to $400 million. here at the top of the second page. Again, reference to the GOI, the government of Iraq's use of CW, chemical weapons. If we turn to the third page, we see something very, very interesting indeed. In point 4, Baker notes that Iraq wants good relations with the U.S. Later on down in that page, in point 5, we see something even more remarkable. Aziz, Tariq Aziz, said this disturbed the government of Iraq greatly because during the war, we had discussed the Gulf region in a frank manner. Iraq has said clearly that it wants to maintain the whole region intact, including the individual countries, that it has no bad intentions against any of them. He stressed, Tariq Aziz stressed, that Iraq's objective was and is good relations with them all, particularly Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. No designs, desire to see the Gulf region remain intact. October 1989. 1 year later, less than 1 year later, the invasion happens. On the 8th of August, 1990, while I was on a family vacation at Yellowstone Park, Americans woke up to see this on their television screens.
Good morning. It's a busy morning at Fort Bragg, where this morning on through the night, troops are preparing to leave for the Mideast. There they will join U.S. forces said to be already on the ground in Saudi Arabia. In the meantime, Iraqi troops are still positioned at the borders of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq as tensions continue to rise. This is today, Wednesday, August the 8th, 1990.
On NBC News, this is Today with Bryce Gumbel, Deborah Norval, and Joe Garagiola.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Wednesday morning and to what figures to be a special edition of Today as we continue to take a look at the events in the Mideast. They are fast changing this morning. We're going to take a look at all the possibilities and the problems involved. We can tell you the President is planning an address at 9 o'clock this morning. NBC News will cover that. Saddam Hussein is said to be planning an address 90 minutes after that. We'll also be featuring that. But let's get it caught up on the news now, the latest events with Faith Daniels. Good morning, Faith.
Thanks, Brian. Joe, good morning. Elements of several elite U.S. Army units have arrived in Saudi Arabia, the vanguard of a combined air, sea, and land force designed to help stabilize the turbulent Middle East. Their aim is to protect Saudi Arabia and to get Iraq's Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. But there are no signs that Saddam is about to back down. He plans a major announcement today, and there is speculation that he may announce the annexation of Kuwait. One of the American units sending troops is the 82nd Airborne Division based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Kenley Jones is at Fort Bragg this morning. Good morning, Kenley.
Good morning, Faith. I don't know how well you can see the end of the runway at Pope Air Force Base, but this is as close as we can get. The air base adjoins Fort Bragg and is the staging area for overseas operations. During the night, two C-141 Starlifter transport planes took off, about a half an hour apart, bound for the Middle East, presumably. Of course, we don't know their cargo, nor much else about this mission. But while the Army has been able to keep departure times and specific troop movements under wraps, the deployment itself has been an open secret. Army assault helicopters, the kind capable of tank warfare, have been flying to the staging area where they could be loaded aboard transport planes. Long-range transports like the C-141 Starlifter have been landing as well. But the most solid clue that men of the 82nd Airborne were being deployed was when they called families to tell them they were leaving, but couldn't say where they were going.